Good evening and welcome to the June 2024 meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. As is customary, please feel free, anyone who wishes to join us as we rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Glad to see everybody here tonight. Our first order of business is approval of minutes for May 13th, both the public meeting and the executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So unanimous. We have some informational reports this evening, and Mr. Manager, we go straight to those if there's nothing else we need to do.
Yes, we have two presentations this evening, one on the new administrative building at 27 Northport that staff have been working on, and the other is to update the commissioners on the fire EMS study that was recently completed and presented to fire chiefs and town city managers throughout Cumberland County within the last month. Travis will be doing that presentation. While I'm at it, for informational reports, you have the 2023 CCRCC year-end report in your packets for your review. So, but at this time, I'd like to pass it over to Alex to just update the commissioners on the progress of the new building.
So thank you all. As you all know, about 6 months ago, we purchased a new building, 27 Northport Drive. That photo that you see up there right now is the building as of a few days ago. I'll just sort of give everyone a walkthrough of where we stand today as quickly as I can get through it. But given the size of the project and what we got going on, we figured it would be best to just catch everyone up on the work in front of us. As some background to all of this, the original idea, of course, was for us to build a 20,000 square foot building down at the jail. As we got further and further into it with Developers Collaborative, that got increasingly difficult and expensive. And during a particularly tough planning meeting, Developers Collaborative presented us with a Plan B. And that Plan B was, in fact, 27 Northport. As we all know, we all pretty much jumped on that and realized it was essentially the perfect building. Emergency management, executive, IT, HR, deeds, finance, assessing, and public health will all be moving to the new site, which will be just over 60 current employees with room for us to get up to probably 70, 75 employees if needed. The county then contracted with WSP Architectural to design the new building, and we've been at it since. For everyone's reference, the building itself is located off the peninsula, up in what would be called the Northport region, basically the intersection of Washington Avenue. And what's nice about this is for a lot of the employees and a lot of residents of this county, this is actually going to be quicker for them. We have a few employees for whom there'll be a longer commute, but for the most part, just about everyone, it's going to be faster getting to and from this place, including residents. And perhaps in particular, for anyone who's working out in the western half of the county, including dispatch, it's definitely faster. When we mapped it out to and from a law enforcement center, interestingly enough, it's about the same amount of time, maybe a minute or two more, but because you're not going right through downtown Portland, it's actually not so bad. The building itself is kind of an unusual shape. I don't know if anyone's really seen this before, but it's not organized north-south. It's sort of a funny double diamond shape, and it's sort of oriented by corners, but that actually works really well for sunlight getting in, so it makes it a pretty cool spot. This is what it looks like as of this morning. So we've been at it. We've cleared everything out. This is the southeast corner of the 3rd floor. I find it amusing that table that you see there, that's the table that we all decided we liked the building while we were sitting at it, if you all remember that day. Ceiling panels, as you can see on the left, those are going to be saved. What's left is the ones that will get demoed. So here's just, thought maybe everyone might enjoy sort of a look at the bare bones of the building, because it won't be around too much longer. So far, throughout this whole process, it's been going great. I'd just like to point out Elizabeth Huckins and Alyssa Kemery from WSP Architectural have been doing the work for us. Pete Chapat and Mary Connors from Creative Office Resources have been doing the furniture purchases. Internally, Jim and I have been getting a lot of help from Bill Trufone, of course, Erin Gilpatrick, who's been invaluable, and Sandy Warren for getting a lot of the contracts through. So between everyone, this has really gone great so far. So we got a building, we got an empty shell, and we got to figure out how to best to build it up. To talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about things that we've learned, because this building, it's kind of an interesting irony. This is a building purchased by ARPA dollars, of course, and the COVID-19 pandemic really changed a lot of things in terms of how we think about coming and going from work, how workforces go about their daily business, and it really dictates what this building itself is going to look like. It's really had a lot of effect. First and foremost, as we discovered as a county, that we can actually work from home. We can do remote work. It's possible. It's not ideal, but we can do it. We also discovered the District Attorney's Office was way too packed in, and it caused us a lot of trouble during the pandemic. We've got to let them expand out and up into this floor. The other thing we learned, and we're all still experiencing it to this day, Zoom meetings and hybrid meetings are part of daily work nowadays. Just about everyone has some kind of a Zoom or a hybrid meeting during the course of the day. It has to be something we plan around. The other thing that's changed, of course, is we have an extra 9 employees that we wouldn't have housed 5 years ago, and that's the entirely new Regional Public Health Initiative. That's ongoing, that's growing, that's something that we're constantly getting more and more interest in. And this is a silly one, but yeah, those air handling systems, the HVAC, gotta do better, gotta do more. A little ironic that the room's in the state it's in right now here today for that. And then this is the final part, and this is really the trickiest part of this building. Hybrid and more mobile workforces in general are the new reality. Employees oftentimes are hoping for more flexibility in terms of hybrid schedules. We have employees on hybrid schedules. Some departments it works better than others, but moving forward, this is an expectation for a new generation of employees that this flexibility will exist. We've got to build the building knowing that this is the future, whether it's us in the present day or not. Eventually, we're going to have to adapt to that. So those are the things that went into this building aside from everything that we already knew. Before even getting into some of those details, I'll jump into kind of the worst thing about this building. You all experienced it, so this is more nitty gritty. This is the old entryway that we've all taken to calling the coffin. That is one area that's completely we're doing away with. The new plan is going to expand it out, create a true lobby area in the building, get rid of that narrow hallway look. On the bottom right there is just a basic conceptual drawing of what the wood and ceiling are going to be like. All of the lobbies on each of the 3 floors will have something similar in there. This is all using existing product. It's not anything too crazy, but it'll give it a really good look to it. Okay, on to where we're actually putting everything. The biggest area where we needed to make changes, as it turned out, on this building was actually the first floor. Just about everything on the first floor needed to be ripped out and starting over again. You can see the lobby down there on the bottom. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see that little room, the commissioner's conference room. That's the same shape as the original conference area. So if you take that line and extend it straight up, that's what the original strip of conference rooms in the building looked like. They were way too skinny, narrow for our use. So we beefed things right out into what you're calling the main conference room. You can also see up in the middle there, there's a mobile partition similar to what this room has. When that thing's down, when that thing's across, this new room will be roughly the size of the Feeney room today. Ceiling's gonna be lower because it is more of a traditional office building, but the dimensions will be about the same. Obviously, the partitions up here about twice as big. So that gives us a lot more flexibility for this size room or bigger. Then we've got a cafeteria. The original space had a pretty kind of oversized one, but not really all that functional. This one will be smaller and a lot more functional. We'll be doing everything we can to encourage employees to actually sit and eat in this cafeteria. We're gonna work really hard to try to make it as inviting a place as possible. And also a gym downstairs, which the building does not currently have. So that's really the most public-facing size of this. We really had to kind of change up just about every room to get there. It wasn't really configured in a way that worked all that well. Similarly, on the other side of the building, we had to make a lot of changes for Registry of Deeds as well. This is another area, probably should have had it on the prior slide, where the pandemic changed everything for the Registry of Deeds. The people who used to spend their days at the deeds and the traffic, the foot traffic they used to get disappeared overnight. But the business didn't die down. They in fact were busier than ever, but nobody ever came in. And since the pandemic, that hasn't come back. They don't get daily visitors. They get a few a day at most. So the need for a giant public area has gone away. What hasn't gone away is the need, obviously, for the employee area. We've made that a lot more secure than it is at present. And then, of course, storage, and more storage. So this blue area is going to be readily accessible storage. This is what we call the deep file storage. It's mobile racks that people won't really be getting at very much. So again, doing a lot of work to bring deeds up to the way deeds is being used today, whereas the old version of deeds was from 10, 15 years ago when it got a lot of foot traffic. And that's not coming back. It's all done online. Moving up to the second floor, I'll go a little bit more big picture. Sorry, this is truly just me sort of drawing out stuff on my laptop quickly here. We'll remind everyone my background is accounting, not design. The second floor, I find it hilarious that at one point in time, Jim and I were thinking we'd somehow keep the second floor vacant. Yeah, not even close. We do have a vacant strip here for growth room. This area up here, IT, this is an opportunity for them finally, once and for all, to have a common space. IT has been spread throughout the county and has never really had a good work area in the past. A couple of people from the facilities, including Bill Trufant, Public Health, taking up this corner here, our newest department. And then EMA, this center area you see right here is their EOC room. So they will also maintain a beefier version still in the bunker, but this is more for more regularly occurring incidents. And it's still in the center of the building. You'll also see there's a fair amount of vacant areas in here, and those are the various conference rooms, which I'll get to a little later on. Third floor, pretty similar layout in a lot of ways. We start off with finance in one corner. We do have a small vacant area, not as much on this one. HR has its own wing. It's important that HR have that confidentiality, so they'll be sort of in their own enclosed unit. And then executive and assessing share this bottom corner, that slide that I showed you earlier. That's looking out at assessing and executive with a lot of file storage in it. So that's the building. A building that we might have initially thought was, whoa, way more than we needed. When we really started slapping down the desks and really started looking at what we had for conference room needs. We filled it up pretty fast. Good thing we didn't go for 20,000 square feet, because I don't think that would have worked out so well. What I want to do is then move on to a cross-section of an area to give a sense of how this building's really going to work. This is the second floor.
Alex, could you
Yes.
take some questions? Or
Sure.
I think one of the things I'd like to have you express, because I think the public should know that the county's really done something in their favor. For example, we were looking at 20,000 feet. This is how much larger?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well.
This is how much larger is square?
So yes, this is 30,000 versus 20,000 for a lot less money.
Right.
Yes.
And as a result, what we were putting forth for a payment, or a down payment on what we're going to build,
Yes,
is pretty much going to handle this
yes,
facility.
yes,
I
exactly.
mean, I think the public should know that.
Yes.
And we're really saving some tax dollars here.
And I probably did not, you're correct, I did not properly state the rather enormous price difference here, building new versus renovating existing. As much as we're doing a great deal of work on this building, it is, at the end of the day, we're probably gonna come in, maybe not quite half as much in the cost for 10,000 more square feet, but pretty close to it. And yeah, we're not building new construction where maybe it wasn't really needed, I think.
The other thing is you've eliminated lease space too, by pulling, like deeds is coming in, et cetera.
Yes, so the deeds, so the various departments that'll all get pulled into this building are the Registry of Deeds and Assessing, both of which rent space down in 25 Pearl, Public Health, which is renting space on 4 Milk Street, and then EMA will join us in space we own, but, you know, their offices are in fact in a windowless bunker, so we can do better than that. And then perhaps, and again, to repeat it, this enables the district attorney's office to spread out a little bit. We found it time and time again, they were packed in way too close together, not only for their own work, but for their own health. We've got to get them upstairs. So, yes, those are our pieces.
Thank you.
Alex, quick question.
Sure.
So what remains now vacant? And so how many square feet are left available?
Ooh, gosh, good question. Maybe 5,000 to 7,000? Yeah, not a ton. It's really just what you see right there, and a little corner up there. So we'll fill it fast. That being said, some of these areas usually have an extra station or two in there.
But those, that's for their individual expansion.
Yeah, correct.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Again, there was a point where we actually thought, hey, we'll keep second floor vacant. Nope. Not when you actually start dropping in the workstations and realizing how many people are going to go here. So I just wanted to walk through this. This is a cross-section of the public health department, and it's going to highlight a lot of the various things that are new and different with this building that we might not have done in the past. For starters, on the left over there, you see the break area. It's a relatively small break area because, again, yes, that's good. That'll be good for coffee and very basic stuff. We're really going to try to have everyone get down to the kitchen and mingle, and we're going to try really hard to avoid employees sitting at their workstation and eating their lunch. Get out, step away, work on that. That being said, you can never get away from the coffee areas. Next thing up, this is what's typically referred to nowadays as a huddle room, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this huddle room. Right out of the gate, you'll notice that the table itself is a bit of an unusual shape. They're called guitar pick tables, and the point of it is it's oriented towards the TV that's up on the wall there. So this is enabled for folks to have a normal sit-down meeting, but if somebody's joining them via Zoom call, which nowadays is many of the meetings, there's always somebody joining via Zoom, one way or the other, or maybe most of the people are via Zoom. Or for that matter, if you're sitting down to collaborate and somebody brings in their laptop, they can throw what they're working on up on the screen. But at the end of the day, more and more for these kind of rooms, it's almost like that screen is another person in the room. And so the rooms are in fact oriented more in that direction. So you'll see a bunch of these. I believe we have 5 or 6 of these huddle rooms throughout the building. The next two rooms that you see on here are what are referred to as focus rooms. Again, this is part of us changing with the times. So many of our employees now, when they're doing one-on-one meetings or they're doing training sessions or anything to that effect, they're doing them online. They're not going somewhere, but they are in fact sitting there for, say, a 4-hour-long training session while their speakers are going. They can't do that at their desk. They need a quiet space where they can go for that. And this is a constant need. We see it within the spaces already. These focus rooms at every other place we've talked to are pretty much a constant churn of people in and out. So really, all it is a place for somebody to walk over there with their laptop, plug it in, either put on the headphones, put on the speaker, put on the camera, do their training session or do their call. Again, something that we would not have done prior to the pandemic, but is now a normal part of most offices. And certainly the amount of training that's done online is a big part of that. In this particular case, the Public Health Department is doing these kind of sessions all the time with schools throughout the region in particular. So they're going to be jumping in and out of that. Next, you see a section of the 4 workstations. They're pretty standard. This is one area where offices have changed, and we're not really going all the way there. A lot of offices don't even assign workstations for people anymore. They're truly remote, they're not set up, they're very minimal, they're sitting on a bench. That's not us. That's never going to be us. We're still a local government. We're trying to have a little bit of both here. So that's where you see a pretty standard setup there. But in many ways, that's a cross-section throughout these floors in this building. This is that merger we're shooting for here of some traditional workstation, but also adapting to some of the advantages that have come down the pike the past few years. And hopefully we're doing a pretty good job of looking into the future. Final piece of this, this is Liz's office. You will notice it's not huge. Nobody's offices are going to be particularly large. And that's very much a design choice as well on our end. There's no reason that we should have anything gargantuan. We should just be fine with these smaller spaces. Here's an example of the workstations. I won't dig into this too much, but employees have the ability to do some customization on their workstations. This may look like a pretty standard set of 4, but it's actually sort of the roadmap for how it's going. And that's going to give employees some choices. And we found already that it's working really well because employees definitely know what they want. Do they want both sections of their desk to go up and down? Do they want one? Oh, that's the other thing. Everyone uses sit stands nowadays, period, full stop. There's no such thing as stationary desks anymore. Sit stands are the way you go. I just wanted to geek out on this a little bit. This is the air handling. Look at that thing. It's important. It's really important. This really matters. A lot of money and energy is going to go into this. This is going to keep our employees healthy. It is a big deal. If we were to look at the old version of this, it would look very claptrap by comparison. So we're upgrading that. Similarly with the electrical, we spent tons and tons of time trying to get everything exactly right because it's all about the details. The lines you see here are for the generator, a line out for the electrical vehicles. So in many ways, things like the HVAC and the electrical and making sure everything's in the right spot for these rooms has been a bigger deal than the real architecture of this building. And it's been great to see everyone work together. It's coming along great. So that brings us to where we are today. Within a week or so, final drawings will be submitted to the City of Portland for permitting. We're pretty much there. We're at, I'd call it 99% right now on the plans. That will lead to an RFP going out for the general contractor. That process will run through July. We'll also during July put out RFPs for the audio-visual contractor. That's going to be not nothing. There's an awful lot of wiring and electronics that need to go into this building. Late July, staff will choose the winning general contractor bid and recommend out of a couple of the alternate options depending on the price tag. Those options are retrofitting the building a little bit better to possibly take solar panels on the roof. Right now it's going to need a little bit more work. It's actually been encouraging that the work on the steel work isn't looking like it'll be that horrible in order to get this building buttressed up a little bit better for the extra weight on the roof. So that's good. And the other thought is possibly replacing one of the air handler units on the roof, which is working fine but getting a little older. Early August, we'll be asking for your approval of that general contractor. And then hopefully in September, fingers crossed, we can actually start construction on this thing. And that brings us to where we are now. Just thought we'd catch you all up on where we've come from there. I think we're all pretty excited about this.
Alex, remarks. Thank you and everyone involved for your work, presentation, and for the planning. What's the estimate of the compensation project? When will you move it?
December 1st. Just because that's fun.
Just after Christmas.
Right? So
Yeah,
December
Christmas
24th.
Day. Excellent.
We are hoping probably January, late January, might be a reasonable time. Our biggest two hurdles right now, our biggest two pieces, one we're not too concerned about because we've been back and forth with the city of Portland for the permitting. And at the end of the day, this is a renovation to an existing office building. We're not reinventing the wheel here too much. But certainly the permitting process, if we run afoul of something, we can slow it down. And if we don't get a general contractor willing to go right away, that's the other thing that can slow it down. In terms of the work itself, I don't think anyone is seeing like there's going to be some massive, we're not doing any roof building, we're not doing any changes to the exterior. So that's why we're feeling pretty good about that part of the timeline, but there are still variables.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Well, we wish you well with the Portland Planning Department.
We had a little stumble with something called the Civic Center a few years ago.
Did that come up? Yeah. So, we have another presentation, I guess, Jim? Travis is going to be the guilty party, more or less.
Yes, I also have slides. A lot of them should be pretty quick because they're summaries of the long journey that's taken us to where we are today. Very quickly, starting in spring 2022, beginning with conversations Jim was having with managers, it's really starting to bubble to the surface that local emergency response and maintaining those services was becoming a real genuine challenge for the municipalities. This also, of course, was still during the declared pandemic, so the challenges were a little different at the time, but it was clearly the tail end of a trend that was getting much more dramatic with the pandemic's effects. So we started to hold more formal meetings with managers first and began to identify the major pain points. Very quickly, through a survey of managers that was presented to all of you at the time, fire EMS emerged as the most consistent pain point. Priority issues largely were surrounding staffing in all of its forms, both recruiting, retaining, salary and benefits, competing with each other, training, keeping up with regulations. It was a pretty good list. So that summer, we had a similar exercise with the chiefs of those departments. They reported a lot of the same issues, but they also talked about maintaining the mental health of their staff, being concerned with response time, stripping, some administrative efficiencies that they believed were out there and that they just weren't able to grab. Some popular items for collaboration, training programs came up a lot. Community outreach, which is part of that sort of hardening of the general public to prevent emergencies in the first place, inspections, a lot of things they were interested in talking about. Throughout the fall, we released an RFP. We did everything we could to contact every consultant who does this sort of work. We pulled together a committee that included 5 chiefs and 5 managers to review those responses, narrowed it down to a field of 5, held interviews with those top 5, unanimously approved a company called Dynamics Consulting in November 2022. 2023, Dynamics began work. Their goal was to deliver a report late summer of 2023. So a lot of their work in those early months was just trying to extract data from the towns, an enormous amount of data, and it was ultimately voluntary for the towns to choose whether they wanted to participate or not, and there was a lot of resistance to doing that. So we spent a few months trying to extract that data. Dynamics was holding interviews with relevant regional leaders. They came up later in the summer It was around the time they came up that we started to deal with some challenges with dynamics, with response times, with coming up in the summer instead of the spring. It sort of felt like everything on their end was slowing down. And then they sort of vanished on us. So to what degree I've been updating you on this, I think I've largely said, we're still working on it, but we ended up having to apply some legal pressure to bring them back to the table. We discovered that the company had largely fallen apart due to conflicts between the two partners. We still didn't know a lot about that, but we knew that that was what had happened. So, starting in winter, we get them to work together again. We actually convinced the partner who had left to come back to help complete the report. She did her part, handed the project back over to the remaining consultant who vanished again. So we managed to track down the partner who had left one more time. She completed the report, came up in late May to present it to a large group of managers and fire chiefs. About 40 people showed up, 30 to 40. And after that presentation, we agreed on a schedule of follow-ups, which have begun and are ongoing. So that's what got us to the point where we're at now, where we do have a report. It was in your packet. I think personally, ultimately, we got what was required of them in the contract and not much more than that. There are a lot of reasons for that, which I'll go into. Challenges to quality, of course, the meltdown with our consultant was at the heart of it. But frankly, we can't blame it entirely on them because we really did have lukewarm participation from managers and chiefs. A little better than 50% provided most of the data that we asked for. And when you don't have data that covers the entire region, you can only make some assumptions based on what you have. Some completely ignored dozens of pleas. There are some towns who we literally never heard from once in trying to get them to participate. We also had a challenge of the data that was reported to Dynamics wasn't uniform from town to town. They either used different language or different software. It was an enormous challenge for their data consultants to create a report that looks like a whole bushel of apples. And so it was sort of the first identified problem that there's no means to study the entire county when everybody in the county is speaking different languages. So I said particularly post-event. That's, like I have been talking about, how they report what happened after an emergency call went out, who responded, what they discovered there, what happened afterward. They might have a record of a transportation that happened, but not what actually happened on the scene. So for a lot of the things that we've been talking about trying to collaborate or consolidate on, we don't know if there can be some sort of regional sharing of paramedics unless we know how many of those calls required a paramedic, that sort of thing. So we did manage to, I think, extract some useful takeaways. And from a 30,000-foot view, the report is a decent summary of current conditions. There's actually a pretty useful survey in the end that I think captured the things that we think we know and are confirmed to actually know. Of course, due to all of the factors in the previous slide, it didn't contain any silver bullet solutions. There was no, if you do this, this will be your result. Not entirely surprising, I think. We would have liked to have seen something better. But what we did get at least was collaboration from a lot of people who maybe sometimes don't collaborate very well together, and now a commitment to keep staying in the room and moving forward. So it'll be impossible to implement any regional collaboration without better data. There we go. One of the many items that we think are very doable, and there are several, is that some kind of universal data source, either managed by the county or with the county as a client who's distributing it to participating towns, some means of collecting that data and having the reporting be uniform will be very helpful. There is enthusiasm for collaboration in several categories, and just in a meeting that Jim and Alex and I sat in with some of these folks last week, a lot of them are very doable, and seem like solving that first question of all that information will lead to some things that we do think we can probably accomplish with the towns. Coordinating efforts voluntarily is very challenging. As I said, we didn't get a great participation rate, which was frustrating for those who did participate, especially because in some cases the ones who didn't may be the source of some of the problems. There are efforts that we can take and will take that will reduce workload on the chiefs, and that certainly is appealing to them. So critical issues identified by dynamics, these are in alphabetical order, not in order of importance: compensation, standardized pay, health and safety, onboarding, professional development, recruitment, retention, the concept of a staffing pool that is itinerant and that they're all sort of fighting over, training and certifications. Some observations from the report: average increase in incident volume is about 9%. A lot more calls every year are coming in. 2/3 of them are medical emergencies. They're complicated. They take apparatus off the road for a long amount of time. Most residents live within an acceptable distance of a station. Those of you who were at the presentation, the consultant said, look, your stations are very well situated, and there are a lot of very pretty maps that show what a short travel time it is to most residences in the county from those stations. However, the chiefs will tell you some of those stations are never or rarely staffed. So the devil is in the details, which still really needs to be explored. There's a lot of very useful guidance in that report for national standards that we should be aiming for, or our town should be aiming for response time. It believes that they're capable of being met, but again, some of these stations don't have anybody sitting in them, which makes that travel time predicted not actually accurate. Lack of data makes those things difficult to quantify. The survey was very telling. I think there are a couple of things that managers and chiefs agreed on that also appear to be doable. FEMA reimbursement support, they would like more help with that, which is something that I know our EMA department is spending more time with them on. Training for EMT, they also talked about firefighter 1 and 2, disaster plan development. On the logistics side, cooperative service agreements, joint purchasing, things that just make sense to do if you can get everybody to agree. Staffing and HR, grant writing was maybe the most popular idea in the list among the managers anyway. Coordinating recruitment, standardized firefighter pay program. It's an ambitious idea, but the concept of firefighters across a region with the same contract, now they can work anywhere. It's a beautiful dream, but it's something that they all, or several of them, really like the concept of. Training, very popular, also I think very doable. Regional training centers, again, more ambitious, but coordinating training for firefighter 1 and 2, for EMT, AEMT, initial paramedic training, those things could be managed regionally. Not things that these chiefs necessarily feel like they have to own, and that could take an enormous amount of pressure off the local departments and also create some more cross-community similarities when they're being trained by the same trainers in the same program. Schedule can be more reliable. There's a lot to gain by coordinating training regionally. Sorry. Okay, and so these are the priorities that scored highest by managers and chiefs together. You see those points. 1 point was awarded for every time a manager or chief said they were very interested in the idea. 0.5 point, possibly interested. 0 points for not interested. This was a list of 20 or so items. These were the top 5. Regional training facility, we hear that a lot. Cooperative service agreements, regional delivery of training programs, EMT and firefighter, and assistance with post-disaster FEMA reimbursement requests. First one's kind of a big ask, but the rest are very doable. So the recommendations from Dynamics that are applicable to us first and foremost, prepare a strategic plan with participating departments. The idea being, get all these folks in a room together now and say, what does next year look like? What do the next 3 years look like? What do the next 5 years look like? What are the things we want to try to accomplish over that amount of time? Whether it is pursuing a method of uniform shared data, exploring opportunities to collaborate on training, identifying financial incentives. Those are all things that could happen in the short term, within a year potentially. Medium and long-term plans, develop a countywide programming for risk reduction, pre-planning, occupational, medical, professional development, regional training program, facilities program, and then, swinging for the fences and pursuing actually county-managed EMS and PSAP. Again, these are recommendations from Dynamic as long-term goals. All of these things are born out of a strategic plan that genuinely identifies what the towns have an appetite for, are willing to do, and are willing to commit their own resources toward.
What's a PSAP? What does that refer to?
That's a public service answering point. So that's who answers when you call with an emergency. Currently, there are 5 throughout Cumberland County.
911, is that one? Yeah.
So moving forward, we asked the communities to split in half for a couple of reasons. First of all, we like to meet in person when we can, and it's just asking a lot to require some of these folks to travel cross-county for in-person meetings. Second of all, these two corridors, the 295 corridor and 302 corridor, they work together a lot, but they have very different identities. Their approaches are very different. The way that they see collaboration is different, even though they identified a lot of the same needs. So we held the first regional meeting with the Western group last week, and one of the things I think we have sort of heard about but hadn't seen in action is that these people consider each other their colleagues already. They work together on everything. They were very comfortable talking about these things. Some new ideas came up that weren't even in the report that got them very excited. And I think it happened because we put them together with the people that they work with all the time. So we're going to do the same exercise this Thursday with the 295 corridor. And the result of the meeting last week is that they want to keep meeting monthly, roughly, throughout the summer and work toward a time in the early fall when we could have a real strategic plan development exercise. We get in a room for a day, and we really draft out what this thing will look like. I can't speak yet to whether the Eastern Side group will have the same result, but now we know where we ended up with the first group, and it seems reasonable to ask if that makes sense to them too. So our goal will be to keep them engaged, give them homework, have them give me homework, work throughout the summer to identify what exactly we want to go into a room and develop a strategic plan around. We'll hopefully do that in September, October, begin implementation shortly thereafter. So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Take down your thoughts now and in the future if you have ideas about where we can potentially go with this. It hasn't fallen apart yet, which is a positive. I think that we came out of this with a somewhat expensive report that told us a lot of things we know already, but it's useful to have that on paper sometimes. And we still have towns that are engaged, excited, see potential. So I think we have a ways to go, but I feel like there's opportunity here to work with them on these things.
Steve?
Yeah, Travis, maybe you can address what I call drivers. I didn't hear it come up in your discussion, but in the meeting that I did attend, there were 3 things that came out with me, and one you really talk about is training.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all want that, but the new OSHA regs that are
Yeah.
coming out are really what's going to drive the fire chiefs, because there's liability, and that's the other topic. They don't know how to handle that, or how they're going to get protected or whatever. So I appreciate them giving us this data, and we're trying to put in what they would like to do, but then there's what they've got to do.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to see if we can utilize that to drive some of these other factors.
Yeah, you know, I mean, they had some interesting comments on that in the meeting that I think we're thinking of the same person who said, we're going to do what we can, and we're going to hope that the liability doesn't catch us if something goes wrong. And that's a scary way to go into providing emergency services, right? Which is, you know, we know there are things we're not compliant on, and we don't, it's too complicated or too expensive for us to meet. And so I think absolutely regulatory conversations will be a huge part of strategic planning discussion. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Nice job, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have,
Travis.
I don't
Enormous
know if any
compliment.
thought has been given to what the financial bones for the county are going to look like
Mhm.
going forward, but
Yeah,
I think part of what we need to work on probably is understanding what the hands-on responsibilities might devolve into
Mhm.
for the county and what that would cost and how it would be funded.
yeah. I mean, there.
I don't need the answers tonight, because I.
Oh, no, of course. I mean, you know, positions are going to be a conversation, I think, if the opportunity is there for them. So managing data, scheduling trainings, there's a lot of interest in what medical, help me out with the term, medical director, where they are required to have one, and so they're all kind of sharing one, and if that person moves, they all don't have a medical director anymore. There's lots of places for bodies, and I think that certainly they wouldn't expect us to just bear that load on our own, so, yes.
We need a big plaque.
Mhm.
It says, necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
But yes, we will be coming to you hopefully with some ideas that are exciting and that will require funding sources that we'll have to figure out.
yeah. I don't have any idea how they create a functioning fire department in some of these towns already.
A lot of them don't
Hopefully it is
have one.
functioning.
And, you know, I mean, one of the things that we heard at the last meeting was there's a community who wasn't represented there because there's no one to go to the meeting. And they all are just sort of carrying this community along because there genuinely isn't really an entity there steering the ship. And so there's a place for us.
Probably not the last one.
What-
Anything else?
What you'll find is that many of the firemen that are in the outer areas, they are part-time there and full-time in the city of Portland.
Oh, yeah, I know that there's.
We had a few who had up to 4 employers in Cumberland County.
So there's all kinds of integration that we don't know about, but it's all happening underneath. The one thing, again, that I would suggest is that we've got to look at those OSHA regs,
Mhm.
and maybe it would behoove us to pick them apart, and so that they know that they've got to do
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
these things quickly.
Yeah, I mean, regulatory advice alone is really valuable to some of these departments.
I just want to say thank you again for the perseverance. I mean, it was really kind of something falling apart in a million pieces, and you still are finding pieces to pick up and continue the work, and I appreciate your diligence that, you know, you're not giving up on this effort in terms of what we will find and what might be the end product. So I really appreciate you sticking to it despite all of the challenges. And I also just want to say, I think it was really interesting how you decided to do a Western and the Eastern, just to see what would come from that. Obviously, we want unification when we can, when it
Mhm.
makes sense, but I think you'll actually tease out more things by having that approach. And I think, you know, that's a great lesson learned through this process too, that I think will bring a lot of fruit.
Yeah, I mean, my suspicion is the strategic plan will have an umbrella at the top of, these are things we all agree on, and then there might be 2 very different paths.
I think that's important. Those differences, I think, are important to
Mhm.
maintain, to get
Yeah.
everybody on board, you know, to not lose their identities. So, thank you again for all the work.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything further? Okay, thank you, Travis. So, next order of business, we have a consent agenda, TMP 329, 32, 33, and 35, and 37. Our the elements of our agenda, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair,
Not to mention,
Chair, can I ask?
This is the latest one.
Latest revision.
Chair, can I
Yes.
ask that item 24056 be taken out and voted on separately, please?
Is there any objection? Yeah, well, that will be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And I'm reminded that the consent agenda also includes item 24055. So to repeat what we're now voting on, as soon as we get a motion, 24055, 057, 58, and 59. Do I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any objection? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. And is there any reason not, Patty, for us to now address 24056?
Thank you. Just a quick question for clarification
Sure.
on that matter. Thank you. This is for the Director of Human Resources. In the position paper or in the policy, reading through it, I want to make sure there's understanding there. It mentions that if some, I guess, moving violation, I don't know exactly what qualifies as a moving violation, when someone using a county vehicle, that they should report that immediately to their supervisor and then the HR director. But as reading the policy, my question was, what if someone doesn't self-report or self-disclose? What is the situation there?
I think we'd have to look at it on an individual basis, but what we do have is we run employees' licenses once a month. In order for them to drive the vehicles, we do have their license information, so it'll eventually pop up.
Okay, so if they don't self-disclose or they don't
Right, if they don't, we'll find out
self-report,
anyway.
you will find out,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll
And then
find, it
it's,
might be a little delayed, obviously when it gets on the report, but when we run the report, but then we'll address it at that time.
and is that something that we pay externally for, that running that report, or is that internal?
No, that's internal.
Okay.
And we actually do it out the HR department, it's
Okay,
free.
great. And then it would just be a personnel matter after that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
So do we have a motion, please, on item
So moved.
24056? Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Unfinished business, tabled was 24050, which is approval of the cross-insurance arena operations budget and trustees' budget. And do we have a presentation on any of that?
Yeah. We do. We have Michael Aconte from General Manager of the Cross Insurance Arena here to present the budget.
Welcome, Michael. Good to see you.
If you want to put up that page that I saw just a moment ago.
Just on. Oh, here we go.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Yep, so what this sheet represents is a snapshot of how we did last year. The recap was a successful year for us as a facility and for a team as well. Some banner nights that we were able to garner were Bill Burr for 2 nights, which produced over 11,000 tickets with a little over $1 million in gross revenue. Hot Wheels, which was our new monster truck show with no dirt, which is fantastic, garnered 11,000 tickets with 330,000 in gross rev. Jurassic Quest, which is our new dinosaur epic adventure for kids, and we sold over 12,000 tickets to that, and grossed a little over $400,000 for Jurassic Quest. We varied up our stage set a little bit, and for Tom Segura, which is a comedy act, we tried doing this one in the round, meaning directly underneath the scoreboard at center ice. We set up a stage there, which allowed us to put in 8,303 seats. Now, we didn't fill every one of those, but it was almost 7,000 tickets sold that night. So we got a little bit creative with our stage setup, and we're able to land a quality comedian such as Mr. Segura. Had a great night, and that generated about $470,000 in gross revenue that evening. A few more pieces for snapshots, just so you can see how we did last year. Jeff Dunham was our best show we had to date with Jeff. He comes every couple of years. And the gross rev on that was almost 331,000 in rev. Made him very happy. That was the most we had garnered in ticket revenue for a Jeff Dunham show to date. Couple of really cool banner events. We had Indiana, Mackenzie Holmes played against UMaine right here. That sold 6,072 tickets. And then to top that, if there is any topping that, Cooper Flag played here with Montverde Academy. That also sold over 6,000 tickets. So this past year, it wasn't just the regular shows out of the set it and forget it. We tried to get very creative with what we could bring in. What we did bring in for shows, we tried to really maximize whatever infrastructure and assets that we had in-house to make it a better seating arrangement for the fans, a better sounding, better visually. So we had a pretty good year with those snapshots as far as the 2024 recap. What I'm shooting for this next fiscal is another 81,000 in net operating income. And that's probably going to put us it's definitely going to put us a little over 2 million. We did 1.87 this previous year, which I knew was going to be challenging to make that 1.87. So now I'm upping the bar to a little over 2 million. And I think we can do that based on our projected event income, because we've been diversifying, we're continuing to diversify, and some of the newer shows that we just brought on in the last year are coming back again. So for instance, Jurassic Quest is coming back again this year. Price is Right Live is coming back. That was new for us. Hot Wheels is coming back this upcoming year. Joe Coy is coming back, UMaine Hockey, and so on. So we have our annual habitual folks that are coming back, but now that portfolio has grown a little bit more. Before it was just like Disney, Globetrotters, and a couple of others sprinkled in. So now I'm trying to get that built out so that there's 7 or 8 that want to keep coming back each year. And so far, so good with that. We also have shows on hold. I've been saying that I want to get Broadway in here. So I have 3 shows on hold for September. It hasn't announced yet, so I don't want to really share too much with what it is, but I'm going to get Broadway in there. I'm also bringing boxing back in the arena. Hadn't had a boxing event since 1990. What that's doing is opening the doors to other combat sports, because MMA is now taking a look at our arena. So you have boxing and MMA, which hasn't been in our arena at all, looking at us for potential future shows together. So that's coming along really nicely. And then the traditional, I'm trying to book as many minor concerts and major concerts as I can, whatever the calendar will allow. In addition, for 2025, projecting we're going to increase our ancillary revenue based on the fact that our POS is still doing really well. The offerings at the concession stands and catering are very it's fast processing. It's allowing us to offer more variations of what food is available for the folks that are going to the stands. And we're also looking at increasing some of our sponsorships, suites, clubs, things like that. We're already booked pretty much solid for next year. So that ancillary revenue is going to really contribute mightily to the overall revenue income. And the reason why I'm going aggressively at those is because, on the contrary, our expenses are more expensive now than ever. I know every department has that story. This will be the first time that the arena has eclipsed $3 million to run the arena. The expenses, everything from utilities to vendors to wages, almost all the key performance indicators are all higher. I'm negotiating with the union right now. Their rates aren't going to go down. They're only going to go up. So with all that said, it's expensive to run a facility of that size. So for us to maintain those indirect expenses, especially the cost to run it, I do have to be creative with the shows we're bringing in and trying to generate as much revenue per show as possible to offset that. And then, last part is we're looking at, as far as bringing unique shows back in. WWE wants to come back. We have the traditional 7 graduations, 4 trade shows, and 5 minor concerts. So we add all that together with one. November, we have November 9th is a Christian rock show, which is almost sold out. Put together a nice billing package for that. It's the 3 top bands in that genre, and we're pushing over 5,000 tickets right now for that show. So I think we can get there. I think we can get to the numbers we need to as far as our ticketing and our ticketing revenue. I think we can generate even further ancillaries with better offerings at our catering and concession stands. And we just really have to button up the expenses on running that building because, like I said, it's not getting any cheaper to run a facility of that size. It's quite daunting. So that's the plan that we looked at with the trustees. I presented this back in April, and we left off there and wanted to give you guys a high-level overview of what we covered, and would love to take any questions or comments you might have.
Questions or comments? Anybody?
I'd say I think it's great that the portfolio of what you're bringing in is diversifying, and I think, clearly, it is expensive. The size of the facility is not small, and all the nuts and bolts to run it is certainly a challenge. So I appreciate really working hard to create efficiencies where you can, and
Sure.
the boxes and the clubs. It's a great way to add a little bit of extra oomph to what we need. So thank you for your work on that. Sounds like we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
I'll say it's not lost on us that last few periods exceeded expectations each time, so that's good to see. It didn't happen a lot when I first got on the commission.
Thank you.
Anyone else? In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve item 24-050.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, Mike.
We have new business. 24060 is approval of the agreement between the town of Buxton and the Regional Corrections Communications Center to use the town's radio equipment, including the Channel 8 tower.
Would you like to know something about that?
We would be glad to have a brief summary.
All right, brief summary is, as part of the Cumberland County Regional Communication Center's new radio system, we've had to touch a lot of our towers that we have throughout the county. One of these towers is the WMTW tower that's located in Baldwin. We learned through a common vendor that both Baldwin and Cumberland County use, RCM Communications, that we were both doing similar type work over the next 6 months to that tower. And they suggested that there's an economy of scale that we could partner with one another and save money on not only the upfront infrastructure costs, but ongoing maintenance costs. So this agreement is an agreement that brings Cumberland County in a relationship with the town of Baldwin. For the upfront, Baldwin would be responsible for the upfront infrastructure cost, and we would then be on the hook for maintaining it over the next 10 years, or the useful life of the equipment. So it's a win-win for both the town and the county, and it gets us over that hurdle so that we can get our communications infrastructure up on that tower sooner than later.
Any questions, issues? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please, for, so we have a motion on item 24060. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Item 24061, authorizing the county manager to enter an agreement with Securitas Technology for the design and build of the jail security system upgrade in the amount of a mere $2.8 million. Mr. Gailey?
Thank you. I'm just going to briefly introduce it, then I'm going to kick it over to Bill Trufant, Facilities Director. We are in need of replacing the door lock system down at the jail. The current system is at its past its useful life and is creating a lot of bugs for us. What I want to just relay on to the commissioners is that in 2023, we were approved by yourselves to sell a general obligation bond. And within that general obligation bond, there was $1.2 million for this door locking system. There was also $1.7 million or $1.75 million for the roof of the jail to be renovated. Unfortunately, we're not able to do both because this door locking system has come in much higher. It's over $2.8 million at this time. As this is a priority, and we feel as though the roof of the jail, though we do have some spots we don't have major issues, we can put off the jail roof for another year or two so that we can move forward with this door locking system. Part of the approval would be to transfer the funds allocated towards the roof within the general obligation bond over to the jail door locking system. So with that said, I'd like to have Bill Trufant come up and just talk a little bit about the door locking system that is being proposed this evening.
Evening, Bill.
Hey, thanks, Jim. So basically, the door locks that are there are the originals. It was built in '92, so they've had their usable life. These are old-style locks, and basically, we were notified by our provider, MTI, that these locks will become obsolete in 2026, and there will be no service to these locks. So we're at a critical juncture right now. It takes a long time to gather data, gather door numbers, controls, work with the major and jail command staff to figure out how they want to operate the jail. Is there any changes that they'd like to see happen that maybe weren't thought about in the original design of, and how things have changed? How can we work with that? So working with them and working with our county electricians, we put it out for RFQ to door security vendors. We had three very good vendors. We chose one that truly focuses on jail security. We feel that they are top-notch. To speak to the reason why the number came in so high is the fact that the type of lock that's there, we need to run new wire to every lock. Right now, the locks are daisy-chained together, so there's one wire for every 30 to 60 locks. So now we have to run one wire, a home run, from a mechanical room to each individual lock. So that's why you look at such an increased number. We basically have doubled the door lock number just in wiring alone, and that's not even the program for the locks and the locking mechanisms themselves. So there's a lot. This is super labor intensive. We're talking 16 months to get this done, from basically the first day that they start to the day that we can basically turn over the entire jail back to the jail command staff. Also, this includes the jail medical addition. We'll be working with them because in the medical addition, we knew that we needed locks, and we were at the point where are we going to install something that we were going to be replacing within a year and a half, or do we just say, let's just keep that out of that and do it all at once? So with that being said, we're very comfortable with them. We are really looking to hit this hard and try to minimize the impact on the jail staff and how it operates. You know, they're going to be running 2 control systems at a time, which can be problematic, but working with this vendor, they do this every day. So they know how to accommodate the needs of the facility and offer any amount of assistance and training that we need to, truly minimize the impact on the folks at the jail, to make sure everybody's safe and secure in the building as needed and as designed. So I'll open any questions that you may have.
Okay, you had your hand up first, I'll go second.
Thank you. Patty. Bill, how long will it be until you can commence the project?
I would, it's upon contract signature, it's 30 days to mobilize them. It's roughly 90 days to get a true idea of wiring routes, of where we're going to place our control panels, and really find real routes, because, in a secure facility, nothing's easy. Everything's, double block, and are we gonna have to core through walls and make sure that whatever we do is secure, as in, in a jail facility, everything's different. It's heightened sense of security. So whatever we do, we have to make sure that it's doubly secured than a regular. I would say, about 120 days before we can really get going.
So we'll be pushing into 2026, completing the project?
Potentially.
Is that going to be an issue?
It potentially will be. I think what we had talked to the major about is in the fact that we do have an open pod right now that we can't even use because of the issue with the existing door locks, that there's no fix for it. And that's where we're at. So we're always going to have an open pod. So we'll be able to have, and working with the major and such, is moving folks around to accommodate always having an open pod. So unless numbers jump, which is not always a good thing, but in the grand scheme of things, it happens. It potentially could happen, but they do know where we're at. Is the fact that they are aware of our need to get this done expeditiously, and they're willing to work with us as much as possible to get it done. Yeah.
A quick question for Jim. The money, if we appropriate, reappropriate 1.7 to this project, both those sums have been previously approved.
Yes.
1.2.
Yes.
All right, so this is not a new expense.
It's not a new expense.
We're just reallocating.
Correct. And it's our intent that the next time we propose a general obligation bond, which could be as soon as we start building the next budget, there will be money in that budget for jail roof. So we're not gonna let that jail roof go too long. It's just we were at a point that we needed to find some money and fast to get this project going. So that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Patty, did you have something?
Just clearly, it's the critical need, so we need to, I think, reappropriate. You talked about running two systems at a time. What is the sense of how long would we be running two systems at a time, and what is the security liability there when we're running two systems?
That's a great question, and we have worked through that theoretically. Nothing is changing for graphics-wise. Nothing has changed. Everything that the officers use now is there. So it's not like they're changing, I'm not sure how to unlock this or do this. Everything is going to mimic what they see on their screens. So that is seamless. It's, do I use this computer or do use this computer? So they're going to be right next to each other.
Yeah.
It's just trying to get them trained ahead of time. So if they're in, however that needs to be, we need to say, okay, pods such and such and such, this computer, main hallways and these pods and main access doors are this computer. That we will work through once we start taking a pod offline. So yeah, it's gonna be tricky. We're gonna have some growing pains, but these folks do this every day, and I'm gonna lean on them a lot to how we integrate both of those systems working together.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, I had a chance to talk with the manager about the complexity of this. I was suitably impressed with how difficult it's going to be, so.
Yeah, to be honest, we've been working on this since early 2022. So we have done a lot of background work to try to minimize the impact that this is going to have on the jail, because this is a massive project for them. And it's an upheaval, and it's a change. anything that we can make easier for them, I want to do. So
Will this go for another 20 years, maybe?
I
When it's
would,
done?
maybe past the time I decide to
Okay.
retire, I would be all for that, I tell you. That
Okay,
is the goal,
all
that is
right.
the goal, yes,
That
that
sounds
is, that's for
perfect.
sure.
Good note to end on.
Yes.
So, can I have a motion, please, then, for 24-061?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Before we go into an executive session, we'll go through our comments. So, beginning with our manager, Jim.
I'm all set this evening, thank you.
And how about our deputy manager?
No need for point here from me tonight, thank you.
And the executive staff starts with Travis
I gave my report earlier.
and Jenny, Amy,
I'm all
Yeah.
set.
and Catherine.
All set. And I'm all set.
Give the major an opportunity.
Yeah. And Major, did you have any wisdom for us tonight that you wish to impart?
No, just want to acknowledge human resource with the recruitment effort, getting a lot of people in the front door, and staffing is improving, so I appreciate it.
Right. And county commissioners, Commissioner Wittonis,
All set.
Commissioner Jameson.
I'll break that.
We should have known.
We were rolling so
You are
well.
rolling. Just a couple of very quick comments. Happy Father's Day for all those fathers out there. Hopefully, all of the families will get together and enjoy the day. I want to wish happy graduation to all the high school graduates. Most of those occurred or started occurring this past weekend and are occurring this week. And it's a huge accomplishment for the families.
I didn't see it. I can't see it.
And for especially the students. So congratulations to all. Sport championships, state championships are happening. I want to wish and congratulate the Scarborough girls track team who won state championship recently. And for those teams who are still participating out there, congratulations as well. Want to thank the staff and especially Alex for the great report on the new building. We look forward to completing that generational changing project for the county. So, great work.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I have nothing this evening, thanks.
Commissioner Gordon.
Well, to follow on what Commissioner just spoke about, we have summer starting, and there's going to be all kinds of festivals and communities, et cetera. So get out and support your community, get out and support the good weather, and take advantage of the issues that are, and products that are being sold by local people. And we'll mention one, you get the Yarmouth Clam Festival.
Well, I'm astonished you bring up the Yarmouth Clam Festival because it's the only place, I was just thinking, in the entire world where you can hear the Wicked Good Band on usually Sunday at lunchtime. Something to wait for all year long, to tell you the truth. They kind of wheelchair on up to the stage and off they go. Yeah, that's it. Again, want to mention the people at the Civic Center, and I know it's a team effort, but I couldn't help but thinking when we were first dealing with the possibility of renovating it and what the budget might look like, and we got these very thick reports. I think we had about 30 of those, but we got a fresh one for the occasion. And all I could think of was, oh, these guys love to build pyramids. You know, it's just, none of these numbers are ever going to happen. And for the first time in Western civilization history, you've made them honest people. So that's great. That's great to know. I had the honor of walking through the rain in Orono, Maine this last weekend, where the state Special Olympics occurred. There were literally several thousand people involved, including a large contingent of police and fire, and not excluding, I was glad to see our own Cumberland County Sheriff's Office had a presence, both in a parade and then subsequently, as they like to do, enlisting the help of public safety people to pass out the awards, which again, our Cumberland County representative, I was able to notice, was involved in that as well. So it's good for morale, as they say. And with that, I have nothing further. If no one else has anything further, we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
And the purpose of this motion is to review the evaluation of the county manager. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're in executive session. Thank you all very much for coming.